Hi, this is Pat Moorhead with More Insights and Strategy, and we are here for another incredible episode of FinTech Friday with Melody Brew. Melody, how are you doing?
Doing great. How are you doing?
Good. Gosh, I think it's 10 degrees cooler in Austin than it was 10 years ago. So, whatever is happening with climate change, I'm sure it is terrible on a macro level, but wow, I'm kind of liking this cool weather.
I know. It's actually been really nice. It's been a nice, mild summer so far.
Yeah, and I've got kids going back to college next week. I'm going to be an empty nester on Thursday of next week, officially.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
I,
it's fun.
I still have three in the nest. It's a while before I'm an empty nester.
Uh, I'm glad I am right where I am, but I'm going to miss them like crazy. And empty nester doesn't mean you're still paying for them. So that to me is the true like they're out of the nest. So,
Yeah.
anyways, we've got some
Yeah.
great topics today. We are talking about Robinhood. We're talking about buy now, pay later stuff, Square crypto. We're talking about Jack, you and your personal close friend Jack at Square. Kind of this whole concept of super apps in fintech and our acronym of the week, KYC, but I am not going to tell you what it is until the end. You're going to have to stick in there. So let's move forward. Wow, Robinhood went IPO. Was it a stunning success? What is it? It is a failure. It's like depending on like what hour you're looking at the ticker or reading the news. What on earth is going on here, Melody?
That is so true. It's like, I think everybody thought it was just a massive failure. I mean, literally, people were calling it a broken IPO.
Right.
The worst IPO, worst tech IPO since Facebook. It was just, this like massive disaster. Came out at their lowest of their range, which took them at the lowest of their valuation. Came, I think, 8% down for the day. It was just called a full disaster. Um,
Now, is that a,
and
yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Keep going. I can't, that pulsating 54% in the past 5 days, up 8.57%. Like, what is going on? Is this like a meta of itself? Robinhood, the platform for
well,
stonks
it
and
is.
meme
It's so
stocks,
funny.
has
That's
become a
kind
meme
of
stock itself?
it's becoming the meme stock. It absolutely is. It's like this is where it all started, and this is what they're turning into. And there's lots of reasons of why it's kind of roller coastering throughout this week. But just when you think they're somewhere, something else happens, and they're having like some pretty big swings. So I don't know. I think this one is we're going to still see some swings. There were a couple of the early investors just filed to sell some of the convertible notes on some investments or some early investments, and that's one of the reasons for one of the dips earlier this week. Um, that there's also like a lot of chatter in the Reddit um, forums. People are not super happy with the way that it happened. Obviously they offered the pre-IPO or the IPO shares to their users, but when you look at like if they're really trying to democratize finance, is an IPO the right way to do that, or should they have just gone direct listing? So they're still having to compete with the market makers, not just let the market decide what the price is. They set that price, and they set it at the low of their range, but they didn't let the market decide what the value of the company was. So this will be an interesting one to watch. Our newsletter went out yesterday. I had some things in it that, like, just from hour to hour, I look at now and I'm like, wow, maybe I should hold off on putting anything of what's happening with Robinhood in our weekly updates, because we need hourly updates for what's happening here.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, to put it in overall perspective, I mean, I 20 years ago, I opened up my first account. It was on E-Trade. And people looked at E-Trade, as going to ruin the market, and these horrible retail traders. But I remember just having a great time. I think in 2000, 1999 to 2000, I think anybody can make money on anything. You put a hook out and you can make money off anything. And I really feel like Robinhood is kind of the version 2.0 of that. So yeah, we're going to see some roller coaster going up, down. I believe it's becoming meme stock on its own. And quite frankly, if you're plugged into Reddit and you're using Robinhood, you're absolutely tracking Robinhood and its IPO. But this is not going to be this might be the second time we're talking about it, but it's certainly not going to be the last.
Right. I think another thing is they're sort of paying the tuition for every other trading app.
Okay.
They've done a lot of things right. They've made some big mistakes. They've had some big fines. We just found out that the CEO isn't even a licensed broker. All these other, which is kind of crazy.
Is that a problem? Is that a problem? I mean, I guess apparently it's not.
Well, I mean, we'll see. I think that's still that's yet to be determined. I think it's a little bit of a problem. But if what the end product is, amongst other fintech companies, what we're seeing, like what happened with Public with pay for order flow, is they removed that. So again, they're paying the tuition for other ones moving forward, and that's just making others better. So I think it's interesting to watch. Again, it's an hourly thing. We'll see.
Yeah. So hey, let's move to the next topic. Square is acquiring Afterpay for $39 billion. So there's the pay now, and there's pay later. And Square has made its mark from pay now. It's gotten into even providing cash registers for retailers. And if you are a new restaurant, there will likely be one of the Square terminals there. Heck, I took a Square payment for $50,000 last week for consulting services. We've offered Square payment for a long time, but what's going on here?
Yeah, they also, Square is really, they've added a lot of other different services too. They've just recently added checking and savings services for their merchant customers. So I think they're just making a really big banking play in general. But with buy now, pay later, this to me says a lot about what's happening in the buy now, pay later industry, and that Square is looking at that industry and saying, a lot of people aren't really wanting to use credit cards. And what happened, especially during the pandemic, is that people needed to pay for things in installments. And that industry just was booming so much. So this just gives them another option for people to pay. And I think I've said this before, like, I think the buy now, pay later industry is really just an interesting indicator of what's going on in general in our economy, in retail, in people's habits, in spending, in the way people want to shop, because it's really kind of a marker of a lot of trends. And so I think, Square is taking a look at that and seeing that that's a huge trend, and that it's something that they need to take advantage of. I also think that it makes them a serious contender to compete with PayPal. PayPal has the pay in for whatever they call it.
Yeah.
And I think this puts Square, it squares them right up with PayPal. And I think, they have a better brand recognition amongst the people who don't want to use credit cards, amongst the millennials and younger people who don't want to use credit cards. I think, the one thing that this huge usage of buy now, pay later does is it opens up to fraud, because there's not credit checks. It's usually just, name, address. There's a couple of things that vary from platform to platform, but there is some fraud potential there. But I think this just gives Square another way to compete with PayPal and another banking service to add. So
can you listen? And one thing I want to remind everybody is we are not licensed investment professionals, and this podcast is for educational and information purposes only. Find a pro here, but literally, I saw the price of 29 billion, and I literally almost fell out of my chair. You know, the largest chip tech deal is $30 billion. Sorry, $40 billion, which is NVIDIA making a play for ARM. And it's like, okay, I get that. But $29 billion for what? Are there a bunch of assets that come along with it? What's
right? No, it's definitely the user base, and actually, glad you said that about not investment advice, but both companies' stocks went up when this deal was announced significantly. So it's a hot market. The buy now, pay later industry is super hot. You can see there's a lot of other things going on in the industry in general. Lots of mergers, lots of companies, buying up other companies that have other services like shopping, like virtual shopping assistants and things. So they're adding on services. It's not just paying in installments. It's other ways to make the shopping, to enhance the shopping experience. So in a way, they're kind of, we're talking about super apps. They're kind of becoming more than just a way to pay.
Yeah.
They're adding on all of these other services so that they capture more of the shopping experience and more of the dollars that are being spent.
Hey, excuse my ignorance here, but you're the fintech expert, not me. People use buy now, pay later. I'm like, it's a credit card. Well, how is buy now, pay later different from a credit card? And why not just call it a credit card?
Yeah, so the way that it's different from a credit card is there actually no credit check. So this is actually something that for Square, it really does align with their mission of making finance more fair and accessible. So for people who don't have a credit history, buy now, pay later doesn't involve a credit check, and they don't charge any fees or interest most of them don't charge fees or interest unless you miss a payment.
Got it. So it's like a charge card, but without a credit check, like American Express. All right. I got it. Thank you. That's been bugging me for 2 shows, and cleared that up for everybody. So, we were talking about Square here, and it seems like could be my mistake, but aren't you buddy with Jack Dorsey here?
Yeah, apparently. So yeah, that was pretty funny. I was interviewed called to get my take on this article in Protocol about what they're doing in crypto, and I think I have referred to him several times as Jack Dorsey, and then the thing that got quoted was just me calling him Jack. So the truth is, I don't know Jack.
No, this is good. No, it's great to see you quoted. I see you quoted like once a week in Protocol. So now that's pretty good. And listen, if you want to get your buddy Jack on here at some point, and I think we can I would accept him on our show. I don't know about you.
I would too. I mean, I'll reach out to him. We'll see. I'm not sure if he'll respond.
So you ask him to shave the beard, or come on and just. Anyways, that's way too personal. Okay, enough fun and games here.
One thing about that is that in that article, it was about what they're doing in crypto and what they're doing with this new TBD. Which I actually think is the name of the platform. They just launched this open developer platform for decentralized financial services. And that, if you take a look, and I think my quote was Jack is very bullish on crypto. And I think that a lot of what's going on even in the other Square services, there are a lot of things happening in crypto there. So I think they're just setting that up for, which kind of again aligns with our next conversation, which is super apps.
Let's get into super apps. And I'll tell you, we were putting together show notes. I'm reading through this. I read the article. I still have no idea what you're talking about here. So please educate me and the audience on what you mean by this.
So super apps, I mean, they're actually like in China, super apps are very popular right now, like WeChat and Alipay. It's just one app with one sign-in, one user experience, all bundled together. Like, so basically you look at something that has like online messaging, like WhatsApp, it has social media, marketplaces, services, all in one place. Very popular in China, also becoming very popular in India. I think there's a number of companies that are kind of trying to make a play to do that here in the US. I think Square could definitely be one of them, with all of the things that they're doing. And essentially it's just, consumers want simplicity. And when you are doing something and you have to log into each individual app to make, like, let's say you're going to go on a trip and you've got to log into your app to make the a plane reservation, and you've got to then log into your messaging app to text your wife to get tell her that you made the plane reservation. Then you've got to log into another app and text your cousin to tell them that you're coming, and then you've got to log in and rent your car. If you could do all of that in one place and make the payment, so they're typically like, it's a banking app that then you don't have to log into anything else to make all of those payments. So that's kind of what this Revolut is trying to do, and they just got a huge, massive funding, and they're just they just launched travel services. So what they're doing with these travel services is they're offering like 10% cash back. So they are a neobank. Sorry, I should have clarified that from the beginning. They're a challenger bank. So you already have your information with them. You already trust them. You already have a login with them. If now you can book your travel, you can use it for messaging. You can use it for whatever ride service you use. You can order your food. You can do all of that. I think that people are, where you pay for something, you're likely to do other things.
Okay, so this is a shop. Okay, this is a financial app that then you go and you buy all your stuff, as opposed to, because a WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, and even iMessage, and particularly in Asia where people have bots, right? There's bots. You want to buy a plane ticket, you can do this. But this is actually, it starts with the financial app and then goes out. And I've seen, Bank of America has had this on their banking app forever, and it just never seems to work out. And you can get discounts on stuff. But listen, this stuff never ceases to amaze me. Something that looks like a complete loser ends up to be a complete winner. And it all depends on, again, that center of something. Maybe there's a discounting discounting benefit from using the super app out. Is that the benefit to the user?
I mean, so in the case of WeChat, it didn't start out as a bank, but they have incorporate payment into it. So I think Alipay is a different situation, but I think now the challenger banks who are trying to become super apps are that's sort of the model. I think rather than revenue share, they're able to pass those savings on to the consumer. So they have to be doing that in some way if they're offering 10% cash back on savings. So rather than link to go now and book your travel, you book the travel through them, they're passing on that 10% cash back. But I think, a couple of years ago, it's been actually over a year, KPMG did a study on super apps and if people are ready for it. And there is some indication that, it was definitely more popular in the East, but that consumers in the US are starting to recognize the convenience factor of it. And I think, just sort of anecdotally, people are, after, spending a year in lockdown, people are realizing that simplicity is actually kind of nice. And that if we can not be jumping around from thing to thing, that there are lots of things that people are realizing that actually we kind of did that now that we didn't do them for a year, that how crazy it was did them.
Right. That is funny. Like we went from disaggregated, right? When we went from the PC to the smartphone, right? Hey, there's an app for that, right?
Right.
Like 12 apps that kind of replicates on the desktop that one app would do. And we did it for the sake of simplicity. So what I'm hearing you say is we are re-aggregating or aggregating some of these things in the name of simplicity.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the accordion. By the way, this is tech and this is life. I mean, tech aggregates, it disaggregates, it aggregates, it disaggregates all the time. And why would apps be any different? Well, they're not. Hence, we have the super app. An amalgamation of different types of capabilities starts with the center of a financial app, or in the case of WhatsApp or something like that, from a messenger. So
somewhere else. I think you're seeing it across. I think you're seeing it in other industries too. I mean, definitely in tech, but in other industries too. Think about the number of things that are being bundled right now. When you shop on Amazon and you look at something and says, "Oh, these three things are bought together." When there's so many things that are being bundled right now. Simplicity is back.
There we go. Simplicity is back. I love it. You heard it maybe first. Simplicity is back. That's Brew, practice lead for FinTech and More Insights and Strategy. So let's get into what's become my favorite part of the show, which is the acronym of the week. We're on our third show, but we talked about NFTs. Last time we did HODL. And this week we have KYC, not to be confused with KFC, the chicken place. Well, what is KYC? What on earth are you talking about here?
KYC stands for Know Your Customer. And so, actually, when I was thinking about when I was thinking about what's a good acronym to talk about this week, I was like, Know Your Customer. Is that like too well known? Are people going to know what that is? But I guess not. But the funny thing is, everybody knows what it is because you've been through it. So, but I think just to actually to name it and to define it. So Know Your Customer is just the process that any fintech app or any banking app or anything that deals with your money or your identity has to go through to verify who you are and who you say you are. But I think the reason why I thought this was interesting, kind of to talk about now, is that it's really important for fintech, obviously for for the money reason, but it also things that are things that are happening in the industry, like with regulation tech and with data right now, are making it so much simpler. I actually have just sort of like a real life comparison of maybe 3 years ago going through KYC for a crypto trading platform took like 3 or 4 days to do, and a lot of it.
It's a process.
Yes, yeah,
okay.
It's a process. Yeah. So, but this is a lot of times it involves like you have to take a picture of your. So it should, if it works really well, should just involve putting in your name, your social security number, some private information, and you'll be able to verify who you are. 2 years ago, it involved, like having to take a picture, scan your passport, your driver's license, two, like utility bills, your mortgage deed, all of these things to verify who you are, who you say you are. Now there's all these, clearinghouses like Apex that can just do it instantaneously. We're going from kind of like big data to actually like really narrow data where they can find out who you are I just went through, so again, comparison, like, 2 years ago, getting onto this crypto trading platform, I just went through the onboarding process for a new trading app that is a real estate trading app called Lex. And the KYC process was super simple. It was just, I'll enter the information. They did kick it back to me just because of something with my passport. Or actually, no, I had to give them my passport to verify something. In like just a year ago, that would have taken like probably several days and some sort of manual process to verify it. It was verified like in 15 minutes. So I actually messaged one of their product guys to find out who does it and what their system is and everything. So they use Apex as their clearinghouse. But it's just really interesting. It really, like the regulation tech, and that's another, sort of acronym, regtech, is really simplifying these things. But really the importance of all of this, and we can talk about another acronym at another time, which is AML, anti-money laundering, but knowing the consumer, the importance of KYC is to make sure that there's not money being laundered. People aren't using these apps for fraud and for terrorism. So that's why it's really important. And I think just the technology behind it that has made it so much simpler, as a consumer, you've probably been through it dozens of times and you don't really think about it, but being in this industry and seeing the difference of just over a short period of time, it's really actually quite significant how much it's advanced.
Wow. I learn a lot. I'll be honest with you. I'd never heard of the acronym before in my life. I hope that doesn't mean that I don't know my customers, because I feel like I do. I know my customers really well, but I've never heard of KYC. But listen, this is the just smattering of the insights we bring you on the More Insights and Strategy. So
next time we'll talk about AML.
I have to look it up. Let me Google it real quick. No, Mel, we're rounding out here. It's a Friday afternoon. Final thoughts. We take this time to talk about maybe some shows you're going to, some things you're looking into, some research that you're digging into. What's new? What's shaking?
So I think right now, funny thing is, the last couple of weeks I had my head in the cloud, not actually, not in the bad way, but actually like really kind of dug deep into the cloud and financial services, which is, cloud is obviously your world, but that was for a client, but that really made me want to dig deeper into what's going on in AI. So I think next show we'll talk about artificial intelligence and how it's coming into FinTech. And I also, when I was looking into this trading app Lex and then some other property tech companies, really kind of wanted to take another deeper dive into what's happening in real estate investing and real estate tech. And what I typically call what used to be clipboard companies, and how they're evolving and getting into the tech game and making that digital transformation. So that's kind of what
I love it. I want to talk about AI. I know nothing about property tech. In fact, I feel like we need more tech in property. So that should be a good conversation. But no, I love the AI piece. And, financial services is one of the few companies that is actually using real AI in the machine learning variant of it, not so much deep learning, because deep learning is more of a black box. And in financial services, you can't have a black box because it's not auditable. So that should be a fun one. Mel, I want to thank you for making this show a popular one. We have thousands of people who are watching this, and we're only on the 4th episode. So I appreciate you bringing in your insights, keeping it fresh, and educating us all, including myself, on FinTech.
Well, thank you. Thanks for doing this with me, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's fun. So everybody out there, if you like what you heard, press that subscribe button. If you loved what you heard, you can hit me on Twitter. If you can't stand what you heard and want to fight with somebody on Twitter, at Melody Brew. You can. No, I'm just kidding. We want all feedback, good and bad. But everybody have a great weekend. Be safe out there. Yes, and say yes, and let's bring Jack on next time. So.